What if I told you that nobody actually dies in Demon Slayer? Gyomei, Genya, Sanemi, Tanjiro, Nezuko, Zenitsu, even 100 years later, they are still technically alive. But how do they all end up having happy lives when we literally witnessed Rengoku join the Donut Club? Hashira, like Sanemi, got kicked out of hell. Genya said that he's going to hell because he died as a demon, but then we come to know that others joined him in heaven after their bout with Muzan? What happened?
Makes no damn sense. Compels me though.
Well, first, let's start with Gyomei, as he highlights the secret behind everyone's rebirth and helps represent a deep connection between life and death. Gyomei was a man of God, exhibiting a high degree of piety as seen by his constant use of prayer beads and heartfelt devotion during training in tense situations. This side of his personality stems from the guilt trip he experienced after mercilessly killing the demon that attacked his adopted children. Remember the kids that stepped out when he warned them not to?
Look at my lips, you're ruining it!
Yeah. Well, they didn't listen and they all died. But this didn't take away Gyomei's soft-spoken and sensitive nature as he took on the practice of chanting Nenbutsu. Though he does it merely to heighten his concentration, chanting God's names cleanses all of your sins and slowly purifies your soul. The Nenbutsu phrase, Namu Amida Butsu, I take refuge in Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha was an enlightened being in Buddhist lore who created a land of ultimate bliss, inviting people of this world to chant the Nenbutsu so that they can take birth into that realm in their next life and make their path to enlightenment much easier. With this blessing, Gyomei became so strong that he 1. Gained the rank of a Hashira in merely 2 months, 2. Attained the Demon Slayer mark like it was child's play, and 3. Even gave Kokoshibo a run for his money. But not only that, he taught the other Demon Slayers to pray and chant the same mantra during the Hashira training arc, enabling them to awaken their marks pretty quickly too. By the end of the Infinity Castle arc, my man was literally at death's door because he was bleeding out. His fate was sealed the moment he unlocked his Demon Slayer mark, which is also the case for all the others who did the same. But Gyomei showcased his resilience until the very end, and unlike what Kokoshibo predicted, he did not die that same night, but rather pulled through enough to see the morning sunshine. After penetrating through Kokoshibo's stone-like defenses and helping the others to kill Muzan, the Stone Hashira was laid to rest in peace after seeing the spirits of his beloved children for the last time. This motif of spirits living on continues with Tanjiro as he enters his Demon King phase. Gyomei returned as one of the spirits who helped him come back to his human self. 200 years later, Gyomei's soul reincarnated in a similar looking body but with a new life. The kids you see here are the 4 of 9 who were killed by the demon that attacked his household. But the author of Demon Slayer didn't do this by accident, as Ubuyashiki stated that the memories and feelings are eternal, living through generations. As a result, it wasn't only Gyomei, but everyone Tanjiro prayed for in chapter 204 that eventually got their souls transmigrated into a body where they could continue to live in peace forever as promised. Take Tanjiro's case for example. Sumihiko Kamado, Tanjiro's great-great-grandson, whilst he's dreaming, recalls a conversation with his grandmother asking a very important question. What happens to people when they die? She said they're probably reborn and live together with their loved ones. Sumihiko rejoiced at this thought, thinking that they may have been reborn and are now living happily, which makes his heart feel at ease, being less sad and lonely. This emotion only makes sense once we understand Tanjiro's attitude towards others and even the demons he came across. From the very beginning, Tanjiro had a high aptitude of empathy. He would feel the pain and loneliness of even his opponents. Take for instance the Hand Demon, later Kyogai, and then Rui. In fact, Tanjiro made a prayer for each one of them, which Sumihiko many years later repeats word by word.
Coincidence? I think not!
That's right, Tanjiro has reincarnated in modern day Japan inside the body of Sumihiko Kamado. In fact, even Sumihiko's elder sibling Kanata was able to resonate to this, as after initially dismissing the idea of reincarnation, he starts to cry thinking if it's really possible. Now this again only makes sense once we understand Kanao and her feelings towards the dead. Remember, she lost her adopted sisters Shinobu and Kane, so subconsciously being concerned about their well-being was let out in tears through Kanata's newfound knowledge of their happiness. This materializes through Kane and Shinobu's reincarnation as the pretty sisters in the Sekirei Women's Academy. However, a key thing to note is all these reincarnations are without their prior memories, where Tanjiro's case is slightly different, as Tanjiro once dreamt of his ancestors Sumiyoshi's inherited memories, learning about his life and even his friend Yoriichi, Sumihiko exhibits something very similar, as in his dreams he recalls Tanjiro's own memories with his friends having fun with each other. From merely thinking of the tales his grandmother narrated, Sumihiko fashioned a perfect recreation of events. It's like those moments came out of his mind naturally, and he says that only his ancestors knew these stories. This is aligned with his belief in the way the Demon Slayer world operates, since the author heavily borrows concepts from Buddhism and Hinduism. According to ancient texts, when people die, what actually dies is the physical body and not the soul that encompasses it. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. They are eternal, as Ubuyashiki's idea juxtaposes Muzan's notion of true immortality. The type of body one gets in a person's next life depends on the type of activities they had performed in their previous lives. This is why all the personalities of those reincarnated in chapter 205 are linked to the idea of what their character encompassed. This links back to these other demon slayers who didn't die. The Serpent and Love Hashira. Their relationship was probably one of the most romantic and now wholesome ones in the whole story. They were a true power couple. Iguro was normally silent and had difficulty in approaching girls due to his fearful looks, and the female demon slayers, they didn't really make things much easier for him. Then along came Mitsuri, who wasn't scared of him, treating him like a normal human being. Upon meeting her under a sakura tree for the first time, he was immediately captivated by her kindness and perpetual cheerful mood, stating that there's nobody more beautiful than her. It was love at first sight. Well, let's be honest, we can all relate to that one right there, right? Huh? Yeah? No? Okay. However, Iguro hesitated to confess because he considered himself inferior and not deserving of someone as pure as Mitsuri. But killing Muzan and helping the others washed away his sins, leading up to the Love Hashira finally confessing her feelings for him. Before dying, she prayed to become his bride in their next life, whilst Iguro promised to make her happy and protect her so that she wouldn't have to undergo this hell once again. And so God was like, "I'll sprinkle in some happiness in your lives too while you're at it." 200 years later, both of them reincarnated, got married, and had 5 children. They even started a snake-themed restaurant with huge servings, mirroring Iguro's love for snakes and Mitsuri's big appetite. This example is crucial because God directly grants them their desire, which they state at the time of death. These feelings also include the emotions and memories that you've carried throughout your life, and at the time of death, the most cherished or life-changing ones flash before your eyes. That very phenomenon happened to Genya, who too is reincarnated with his loved one being his big brother, the Wind Hashira. Now we all know Sanemi hated him, but why? Well, it was revealed in chapter 166 that he actually wanted his brother to settle down, have a long loving family and live a peaceful life. Genya joining the Demon Slayers he thought was a big mistake because he knew that they'd have their lives cut short and he didn't want his brother to meet the same fate as him. But ABD, the dude literally threatened to kill him if he didn't quit the Demon Slayer Corps. Look, a little bit of blindness is better than, I don't know, getting hacked by Kokoshibo and bleeding to death in the arms of your loving brother?
So true.
Genya sadly dies with his brother wailing in one of the saddest deaths in Demon Slayer. Upon dying, the younger brother finally was able to apologize to his Oni-chan, admitting that the actual reason for joining the Corps was to protect him at all costs. And so, granting Genya's wish, his big brother continued to live on, defeat Muzan, and even see the morning sunshine. And when he finally did kick the bucket, Sanemi was met with his mother and father in the realm of nothingness. This was the crossroads between life and death, where Sanemi witnessed his siblings, including Genya, happy in heaven, ready to be reincarnated, but noticed his mother wasn't there. As he called out to her, she told him that she can't go to heaven as she harmed her own children, and so Sanemi decided to go to hell with her. But his father intervened and said, "You shall not pass." Thus, Sanemi was thrown out of death's door by his father, who, to repent for his own abuse, went to hell with his mother instead. Sanemi's strong desire to be reunited with his brother carried forward to his next life, as the two together became police officers 200 years later, resurfacing their anger towards Tanjiro once again. Another interesting thing to note is the fact that both of them have the exact same scars and the exact same spots on their faces, which they got this time from a crazy man with a knife. At the end of the Infinity Castle arc, only 2 Hashira survived to attend the final Hashira meeting. One, of course, is Sanemi, and the other is Giyu, the water Hashira. He was reincarnated with his friends Sabito and Makomo. People who were slaughtered by demons, according to Shinto Buddhism, cannot leave Earth unless someone avenges them, which included Sabito, his sister, and Tanjiro's family. Sabito and Makomo were tragically slain by this creature. Seriously, what the fuck is that? But their story doesn't end there, rather it only just begins. Their souls didn't pass through to the other world, but eventually made their way back to Mount Sagari, the place where their master trained them. They first appeared in front of Tanjiro when he was grieving for his incompetence in training. Realizing that the person whom they were looking for stands before them, Sabito's spirit took charge and trained Tanjiro for 6 months, believing him to be the one to avenge their deaths by killing the hand demon. The children that were killed loved Orokodaki so much that they thought of him at the time of their deaths. In fact, before the final selection exam, they made a vow to come back to him, and even if they didn't do so in their material forms, they did so in their spirit form, which again is an arrangement made by nature. After the hand demon, along with Muzan's death, Giyu, who conquered his own insecurities, was able to pray for his dead friends and wish for a life where they could be together once again. This is highlighted as Giyu is reincarnated in his own descendant, Yuichiro Tomioka, who befriends Sabito and Makomo's reincarnation in a swimming school, which is funny as their nature and affinity to water lives on forever. However, none of this would have been possible if Giyu had not found closure and gained confidence in his abilities to protect others. The source of this inferiority complex is the feeling that he's the one that needs protection rather than him protecting others, which is exactly the job of the demon slayers. This changed, however, when he awoke his mark for the first time whilst fighting against Akaza. This was a crucial moment in his life because 1. The mark symbolically represents his worthiness of being a Hashira. 2. He increased his speed, precision, and endurance to the point where he could engage in a long battle against an upper moon. 3. Akaza even claims that he hasn't fought a water Hashira as skilled as Giyu in 50 years. So with the help of Tanjiro, he finally managed to do what Rengoku couldn't, put an end to Akaza's life once and for all. Furthermore, after Tanjiro was transformed into a demon, Giyu was the first to intervene and resist him. All these feats show that Giyu is capable of saving others too, thus releasing himself of his guilt and inferiority complex.
But another character whose fears and insecurities allowed them to change for the better is Zenitsu. Though he managed to live until the very end, like his best friend Tanjiro, Zenitsu was reincarnated in his own descendant, Yoshiteru. In fact, Zenitsu's love for Nezuko is also reignited, though this time not as a lover, but as siblings. Let's not get it twisted though, he's still a simp. Nezuko living a long life with Zenitsu and her brother Tanjiro allowed her to embody her own feelings into her children, just as the dead Kamado family had once done for her. This is reflected with Nezuko re-emerging within her great-grandchild Toko. Her personality even seemed to have stuck, as Nezuko's motherly nature remains. Likewise, Zenitsu's courageous actions are depicted when he was hit by a truck to save his siblings. And as Tanjiro prayed, being cousins to the Kamado family, even after 200 years, their bonds have not broken. But the bigger takeaway from this is that the thought and concept of reincarnation isn't exclusive to the Kamado family, where Yoshiteru becomes obsessed with reading the legends of his previous life as Zenitsu. After doing so, he questions his sister if she believes in reincarnation, because he does. In fact, like Sumihiko, Yoshiteru feels that those that fought demons and died for world peace were reborn into a happier life. This conversation was purposely handed to us by Gotage to confirm how everyone we see in this era are those that fought the demons in their previous life. Now, through Zenitsu's and Tanjiro's family, it becomes clear that those who lived on to start a family are able to rejoin them through their own kids. In fact, we see a similar theme with Aoi and Inosuke, where the latter is able to live his life through his descendant Oba, and we see what Inosuke could have been like if he wasn't raised by boars, ultimately reminding us that the environmental conditions are what made everyone's personality the way it was. However, Inosuke's intuitiveness and genius combat sense is transferred into a more modern day look. Oba, likely due to Aoi's infinity, becomes a botanist who discovers the blue spider lily, which Muzan failed to find for over 1,000 years. However, Inosuke being Inosuke, a mistake causes it to wither further away, bringing the entire research under criticism. Now, this is not really his fault because, you know, these things are very fragile and they don't really last long. And this is when Inosuke's innate desire to live in the wild comes out. But having a hero does not really entail a requirement of being reincarnated, as we saw with a lot of the other Hashira, including Rengoku, who is able to live once again through his brother's great-grandchild Kyojuro. Rengoku's death was probably one of the most heroic ones. He had not only saved Tanjiro, but inspired him to become much stronger. However, amongst all the demon slayers, Rengoku had the most positive attitude, where even 200 years later, it stuck around. But most importantly, Tanjiro had deeply desired to have met Rengoku early in his life and believed they would have been great friends. This wish is manifested with Sumihiko and Kyojuro being best of buds, performing parkour together, making their way to school. But even without any lineage left to spawn in, the Garden Demon Slayer is very kind, as Muichiro and his twin brother were able to live their lives out once again, but this time in a better environment. Though we do not see how they turn out, as you know, they're still currently little babies. But the takeaway from this is that Muichiro's deep love for his twin and regret of not being able to live out his life with him left a bitter taste until his death. After courageously defeating Kokushibo, Tokito bit the dust, but was met with his twin, who told him to live on, but it was too late. In this interaction, they both discussed their reason for living, which brought the importance of happiness. They concluded the happiest moment in their life was when they were together as a family. This desire manifested, with them being born again side by side 200 years later. But amongst all those who didn't die, we also have Tengen. Through all the wives he had, he was bound to have many kids, increasing his odds of being brought back. Though Tengen retired from being a demon slayer, he always had desired a life with a lot of people around him. He was raised up with 9 siblings, where 8 of them unfortunately died. Later, he married 3 wives to fill up the gap. So now, in his reincarnation, Tenma, he is living his life as a gymnast. But most importantly, he is surrounded by family, with 6 other siblings. Pretty much everyone you would have expected came back. Even our beloved sensei Urukadaki and Zenitsu sensei Jigoro. Even the side characters from the Swordsmiths, Flower Girls, Goto and Tokeuchi. But most importantly, the one person who deserved to live a happier life was none other than the legend himself, Yoriichi freaking Tsugikuni. He may be the strongest demon slayer in history, but isn't free from the curse of loneliness, ostracized from his family due to being born as a twin, and having an ominous mark on his head was the least to his path of solitude. The lonesome Yoriichi ran away from his home and ended up in a paddy where his future wife stood, Uta. Not only could he identify with her tragic backstory, but he was also the one person who did not reject him for who he is. Through the lens of time skip, we see them married and living happily after 10 years. But a dark cloud looked down upon them as Uta and their unborn baby were horrifically killed, whilst Yoriichi was out to summon a midwife. The strongest man became the saddest on earth. He loved them so much that he cradled their bodies for 10 freaking days. After pursuing his life as a demon slayer, he encountered his brother, who he had loved dearly. But sadly, this reunion also turned bitter, with his twin betrayal by turning into a demon. This, on top of failing to kill Muzan, which led to the demon slayers banishing Yoriichi, pushed him into depression. Yoriichi eventually met his death due to an old age and a heartbreak in seeing his brother's ugly face. But what lingered on was his dream of living a quiet life with his family, which stayed with him to his next life, as he and Uta were reborn with 2 healthy children. All of this reincarnation goes back to Kagaya Ubuyashiki himself, who revealed that human feelings last forever. He too had amazing children, one of whom later became his successor. Because of his kinship to Muzan's clan, he was doomed at birth to a deliberating sickness that would eventually take over his entire body. For over 1,000 years, the Ubuyashiki clan had one goal in mind: to kill the king of demons, Muzan. Kagaya faithfully continued that goal until his dying breath. He passed on that willpower to his son, Kiriya Ubuyashiki. But Kagaya didn't actually die, as he appeared in his spirit form to help his son in and one of his dilemmas, which ultimately led to Tanjiro returning from his Demon King state back into a human. The reign of Muzan and his curse upon the Ubuyashiki clan had ended, including the one that prevented them from living past 30. Kiryu was the first one to break that age mark. In fact, he lived long enough to see the reincarnated versions of everyone mentioned above. Yeah, imagine living over 200 years. I'd rather die. Anyways, all this goes back to Kagaya Ubuyashiki's statement that Muzan's idea of an internal body is a mistake because nobody can escape the inevitable fate of death. Even Muzan accepted this, as at his dying, he wished to pass down his own will and memories to Tanjiro. However, this wasn't accepted and Muzan's existence was forever gone. This is reflected by Gyomei's religion and practice on Nembutsu, where in Buddhism, the soul carries a portion of the previous body's mind and intelligence to the next life. However, the importance is in prayer and doing good. This ideology further states that those who are demonic says that this world is unreal with no foundation, no God in control, which is exactly what Muzan is said to believe. But Tanjiro believed in such a being and prayed to him constantly, even during the final arc when he wanted to go home and be with his friends. But Muzan tries to stop him through his lies. That's why the combined efforts and fate of the Hashira along with Nezuko and the others allowed the young demon slayer to break free from this demonic state. This eternality of pious human feelings is the reason why the reincarnated version of Giyu, Sabito and their adopted sister becomes friends. It's the reason why Zenitsu, Nezuko, Tanjiro, Kanao, Inosuke and even the others continue to be with each other as friends and siblings. In fact, Tanjiro's prayers in chapter 204 was the inevitable result of Kage's belief that pious human emotions are eternal. Tanjiro dreamt of a future where the people he loved are happy and living their lives to the fullest in peace. Tanjiro and God seems to be best buds. We've seen him constantly praying and talking to the Almighty, giving us the notion that God hears his words.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
Tanjiro likely embodied the essence of Buddhism more than even Himejima. This is proven as during the Mugen train arc, one of the fodder demons took a look inside of his heart, and what did he find? This crystal clear heart indicates he doesn't have any demonic qualities like lust, greed or anger, showing us that Tanjiro is pure of heart, coupled with his good karma accumulated all these years for his good deeds, and you'll see his prayers coming true, which is how no one died in Demon Slayer. If you guys want to learn more about Tanjiro's fight against becoming the strongest demon king, then make sure to watch this next.